Well, in other news, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion into British Columbia is finally complete. After more than 10 years and massive pushback from environmental groups, oil can begin flowing today. The total cost of construction, $34 billion. The expansion will nearly triple the capacity of the pipeline system to 890,000 barrels per day. Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says it'll add 1/4 of a percentage point to Canada's GDP.
For a single project to do that is remarkable, and it comes at a time when we definitely need economic growth and we need our economy to be more productive.
The federal government currently owns the pipeline but has vowed to sell it once it was complete. But that sale could turn out to be just as contentious as the pipeline's construction. Danielle Smith is the Premier of Alberta. Premier, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, David.
We finally found an issue you and the federal government can agree on. It's the Trans Mountain Pipeline. I mean, it took a while, it's late, and it went over budget at $34 billion to get it done. But what does this mean for the Alberta oil patch in terms of revenue potential and growth?
Well, one of the things I would say is it shows that cooperative federalism can work when you've got the federal government, provincial government, different political parties able to work together to get a major pipeline project built, a major piece of national infrastructure. I think that is something we should celebrate as a country because it doesn't happen that often in modern times. So I've expressed my gratitude to the federal government for seeing this through to the finish line because it had a lot of bumps along the way. But I can tell you a couple of the things that we would be expecting to see is not only the increase in production, which increases the number of barrels sold, which increases the amount of revenues for us, it also will have a boost to federal coffers for increased corporate income tax revenue, personal income tax revenue. And I think that we've already seen that it's going to have a noticeable boost to our GDP. So I think that this is good news all the way around.
John Horgan and the BC NDP might disagree with your notion of cooperative federalism working as a result of TMX, if because you know that story very well. But we've seen the Bank of Canada project that TMX will add about 1/4 of a percentage point in the second quarter to the GDP, which is $7-8 billion in round numbers. Is going to triple the shipping capacity from 300,000 to 890,000 barrels a day. So in terms of a revenue calculation, what do you think this means in dollars for the Alberta sector, and what could it mean for your government in terms of extra revenue?
Well, I don't want to get too exuberant about the current day oil prices because we know that they can change. We know that we can balance our budget on $74 oil, and it's higher than that right now, which is positive. But one of the other issues is that Western Canada Select, which is our form of heavy crude, has been trading at quite a severe discount for a number of years. And if that differential lessens, then that will also result in additional revenues for Alberta. And I think when you look at the impact, when those dollars come in, it allows for us to deal with some of the very severe issues that we've got in government right now, because we've had 200,000 people come into our province in the last year. We need to build more schools and hospitals and roads and hire more teachers and nurses and doctors. And being able to have that additional source of revenue is going to be able to help with that influx. So this is going to be a big and important day for us.
When you go back and look at the historic data on that differential, I think around 2018 it was north of $40. Now it's around $10 or so in terms of the gap of what you get compared to a West Texas Intermediate. What do you expect TMX to do to that? Is it down there because TMX is coming on stream and sort of got baked into the future capacity? Or do you think it's going to shrink even further and be more lucrative for you?
Well, I think what we have estimated in our budget is that the differential will be $16 Canadian, which is down substantially, as you say, from when it was when we were having our pipeline and egress issues. And so that is substantial. When you think of a difference of being able to sell our product for an appropriate price internationally, I've been told that it could be an extra couple of $2 billion, which is really significant because, as I said, we've got a lot of infrastructure projects that we need to catch up on. So I'll wait and see what the actual dollars look like by the end of the year. I've noticed as well that prices are softening a little bit. Once again, the Americans are on the cusp of a recession. All of that has an impact. And so if the prices do come down, then that'll impact it across the board. But at the moment, it still looks like because of the additional production and because of the tightening on that differential, that we're absolutely going to be benefiting from that this year.
So it's up and running in the present day. It's owned by the federal government through a Crown Corp in the present day, but the plan is to ultimately sell this. Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister, was asked about this today, and she said they would dispose of the pipeline in due course. What are your thoughts on what should happen and how quickly in terms of the ownership of the Trans Mountain Pipeline?
I would hope it would be rapid. I mean, one of the things to remember is that the federal government doesn't want Canadian taxpayers to be on the hook for this. And so there's a large portion of that pipeline that is debt financed, about 80% of it. And I anticipate that would continue. And so it's the tolls from the production and the use of the line that is going to pay for the majority of the cost. And then they have to get equity ownership into the private market. I know they're very keen to have First Nations ownership, as are we. We started our Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation a few years ago that backstops loans to First Nations on projects exactly like this. We've already done 7 projects like this, including a major pipeline project. And so I was pleased to see that both British Columbia and the federal government have announced similar type of loan guarantee programs. So I think that the very first equity piece will be a First Nations ownership piece. And then from there, we'll see what kind of private sector ownership falls in. But I feel pretty confident that they're going to be able to make an arrangement that works for First Nations communities, the private sector, as well as does put the taxpayer on the hook.
Do you think it's realistic, though, that they might recover the $34 billion development costs, or should they expect to take a loss on this? Because I know they bought this with the intention of sort of asserting their rights to get the pipeline through in a timely fashion so that, you know, the discount didn't benefit American refiners because of the landlocked nature of your resource. Do you think they should sell it even if they can't get the full dollar value back, just to put it in other people's hands and move on from it?
Yes, they should sell it because it should be in private market. So look, if you think about it this way, if $24 billion ends up getting paid over time because it's debt financed, and they need to be able to sell an equity stake of $10 billion, I think that's entirely doable. That's how it's been framed out to be, which is why I feel like they're going to be able, once they move to the point of finding those equity partners and get the very first arrangement with First Nations ownership, I think that they're going to have a lot of enthusiasm to purchase this. Remember, it's going to be a pipeline that is in operation for a minimum of 30 years, generating about $3.5 billion a year off its tolls. The amount of cost for operating is $500 million. Amount of debt servicing is $1.6 billion. So even with all those factors, it's still a moneymaker. And that's one of the reasons why I think they're going to have a lot of enthusiasm once they do finally turn it around and put it into the private market.
I wonder, Priya, if I can switch for a second to an issue that made some headlines in your province, and this was the decision your government made to cut the low-income transit subsidy for people in Edmonton and in Calgary, which led to some outcry and pushback from the mayors of those cities and people who use the program. And you've now reversed this cut, announcing that you will continue funding it. Walk me through how you got to the decision to cut it and then reverse that cut after the pushback.
Look, it had been framed as a pilot program, and oftentimes with pilot programs, they do end up winding down. We have a program where we directly fund low-income individuals on Asian income support. This is a separate program run by City of Edmonton and City of Calgary, and we've been subsidizing their program. I don't think this was handled particularly well. My minister reached out to both of the mayors, and they affirmed that they still need some help to be able to deliver that program the way they have historically. Everybody is facing a crunch, or our low-income seniors, the municipalities, and this isn't the time for us to pull back those dollars. So he's made an arrangement with the City of Calgary and City of Edmonton to make sure those dollars keep on flowing. And then we'll just have to look at the long-term viability of that program and see if there's a way that we should be supporting it in the long term, or if we're going to phase out, then phase it out in a way that makes sense. We haven't made that decision yet, but the City of Calgary and Edmonton say they still need the support us, so we're happy to provide it.
You say not handled well. Not handled well by whom? By your government? By your minister? Who messed this up in your view?
Well, I think we all have to take some ownership over this. We are trying to make sure that we balance the budget. And it's very tight for us this year until we know what oil prices are going to be. And so every minister had a target to reach. I think we had hoped that we'd be able to find the money for this program within some of our budget, other budget spending. It wasn't possible on the initial pass. So I've asked the finance minister and Minister Nixon to take another look at it to see if there's another way to find it. And they feel pretty confident that they'll be able to bridge that gap. So it's unfortunate that it was communicated the way it was. I think it caught the mayor of Calgary and Edmonton by surprise. We don't like to do that. And so we'll be a lot more careful about how we have some of these program changes communicated in the future.
It's about $6 million, if my math is correct here, which, given the pipeline coming on stream today and the size of the Alberta economy, that's not a tremendous amount of cash in the bigger scheme of things. So I wonder, Premier, is this a reprieve for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Well, how long do you see this reversal staying in place?
Well, as I understand it, the program has been in place since 2017. So I think it's already been in place for 7 years, 8 years. And so we'll have to talk with the city of Calgary and city of Edmonton about whether or not this is the kind of thing that they would need to make permanent. We do have a number of cost sharing programs with our municipalities. One of our most successful is cost sharing 80% to be able to fund social agencies. So maybe there's a way for us to make sure that we keep this fair. Because remember, this is just a program that principally benefits Calgary and Edmonton. When we arrange for funding arrangements with our cities, we like to be able to include all 355 municipalities. So maybe there's a way of us retooling this program to get more dollars to the municipalities and make sure everybody can pay for the kind of programs that they need that make sense for their communities. So we got a lot of more talking to do, but what we did hear loud and clear is that this is just too much of a change too quickly with where the city of Calgary and Edmonton find themselves in their budget cycle. So we've done the reversal and we'll continue the conversation with them.
Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, David.